Welcome to the Lighthouse Financial Advisors Money Over 50 podcast with Dallas Davison and Michael Hogue. This information is general in nature and does not take into account your objectives, financial situation or needs. Therefore, you should consider whether the information is appropriate for you and your personal circumstances. If you require personal advice, please contact Lighthouse Financial Advisors. Here are your hosts, Dallas Davison and Michael Hogue.
Welcome everyone to Money Over 50, episode 19, the best places to travel in your 60s, with our guest, Maria Pandalai from Travel Managers. Welcome, Maria.
Hi, Michael. How are you? Thanks for having me.
Very well, thank you. Maria, tell us a little bit about how you work. You're a travel manager as opposed to a travel agent. Just give us a little bit of background on your experience and how that differentiates a little bit from the typical travel agent.
Yeah, sure. So I've been in the travel industry for 23 years and my current role is I'm a personal travel manager. I've been doing that for 10 years this year. What that essentially means is that I work for myself but using the name Travel Managers, and I work a bit differently. I meet my clients at cafes because I'm a mobile consultant, so mainly at cafes or houses or businesses, whatever works for them. And I find that my clients really, really enjoy that because it's a very relaxed atmosphere. There's no interruption, and and they're just carefree, I guess, in that environment.
Fantastic. And you won an award in the past. You were Travel Agent of the Year in 2011, and that was Australia-wide. That's across all forms of travel agents. So you obviously know your stuff. So
I would like to think so.
I don't want to embarrass
after 23 you would think after 23 years,
Yeah.
It was a really, really, really good award to win. It boosted my profile with Travel Managers as a whole, and it just showed that people in Townsville are good at what they do.
It's fantastic.
Yeah.
And I think I've always said around the 20-year experience mark is perfect because you have enough experience, but you're still young enough to have the energy, and you still have lots of career left, but you have 20 years experience. Now, maybe I'm a little bit, influenced by the fact that I have 20 years in the financial planning industry as well. But I think it's the sweet spot in terms of having enough knowledge and learning along the way, and obviously you learn by looking at what has worked and what hasn't worked equally. And that all factors into the advice that you give your clients and customers. So
absolutely.
That's fantastic. And I hear that you've been chosen as one of 6 people to talk to hundreds of your colleagues at the Travel Managers conference in Perth, coming up really, really soon in August. So tell us a little bit more about that. I believe the theme is the customer this year.
Basically every year there's a Travel Managers conference that's held at different locations around Australia and then international. It alternates. So this year it's in Perth. I was asked by the CEO to discuss with the other personal travel managers who will be attending about what I do differently with my client interaction. Because as you said, the focus this year is the customer. So that's happening next week, and the main 3 aspects that I'm going to, present is the fact that you need to have an amazing relationship with your client, because if you do, they'll like you and they'll trust you and want to do business with you. The second thing I think is really important is having product knowledge, but also knowledge about everyday travel aspects. And because, let's be honest, consumers do want to deal with people who know what they're talking about. Obviously very important. And the third thing, which I'm going to touch on as well, is about time in regards to making time for your client, because if you don't have time for your client, you're rushing them, and I think that's absolutely wrong. I think it's fantastic to actually have that time to give them, to get to know them, get to know the sort of traveller they are.
That's fantastic. Let's dive into point 3 a little bit more. So making time for your client. That certainly resonates with me, and I know that you have a theme to make time for your client and outsource the rest. Tell us tell us what you do in your life in terms of outsourcing.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I got to a point there, Michael, a few years ago where I felt like I needed to take hold of time and just basically, try and create more time in my life. So I started basically thinking of things that essentially make me cringe when I think of them. So over time, what I ended up doing was I hired a cleaner, I hired a bookkeeper, I have a mowing man, I even do Woolworths online orders, which I think really helps as well. And I'm actually considering another thing which I really despise is ironing. So I'm considering actually now getting an ironing person. So I feel that all of those services combined saves me, it's around 7 hours a week, which I feel is a big chunk of my time, especially. It's about a day's work, really.
It is, yeah.
So it's really important. And it's just the cost to outweigh, the cost of those particular services, what you do still outweighs the cost of those services, what I'm basically trying to say as well.
Well, yeah. I mean, you're certainly preaching to the converted in myself, because I do things a little bit differently, but I outsource as well. I mean, that's 7 hours really. It is a whole day's work, but if you're interrupted by those little things, it stretches out to 2 days, to 2.5 days of the week. So I mean, you could conceivably you could have 2.5 interrupted days that would take you up to Wednesday lunchtime if you had to do all those little things that interrupt the flow of your work. And I imagine similar to us, like when we sit down and we have all of our clients' information and we're formulating a financial plan, it's really if you're disrupted in little bits of things that you have to do all the time, then you find that you can't get any flow on there. So you're just not giving your all. And I imagine that would be the same thing with booking, flights from Townsville to Brisbane to Singapore to Abu Dhabi and so forth, and accommodation along the way. You really need to sit down and make sure that you have that all flow on, and you couldn't be interrupted by all those things that you mentioned.
Tedious jobs, yes. No, I think it's really, really important because, like you said, you don't want to interrupt your flow, because it could take me hours to put together one itinerary, which could be a 2-month-long itinerary.
Yes.
So you need to really be focused, and in my particular job as well, you need to be 100% accurate in what you do. There's absolutely no room for any error. So you do need to be really, really concentrating on what you're doing. It's really, really important. Yeah,
that's a good point. You can't be 99% right. It's either you're wrong or you're right. It's so
exactly.
Black and white in your field.
Yeah, because things like flight connections, making sure everything lines up.
Yeah.
Because if it doesn't line up, then there's going to be a crack in that itinerary, and so you need to make sure that you're on the ball.
Yeah. Staying on the outsourcing theme, so one of your most frequent clients or customers are people that like to outsource. So you mentioned before in episode 18, which was best place to travel in your 50s. So if you haven't listened to that yet, go back and listen to that one. But you're talking about one of your typical customers or clients are people that are time poor and like to outsource as well. I imagine so. Yeah,
so they're essentially doing what I'm doing, but they're outsourcing to me.
Yes.
which is great. So
that's right. Otherwise they'd have to give up a week of their life, which they don't have, or more to book their upcoming holiday, and still not do it as thoroughly as someone that's a professional.
Yeah, but potentially they could do it themselves and make an error, and it costs them more time.
Yes.
So
that's right.
Makes sense.
Fantastic. So can you tell us about the type of travel that suit people in their 60s best?
Yep.
Those types of things that you commonly see where people in their 60s, the styles of holidays and travel that they book.
Yeah, absolutely. So there's about 3 that I think are quite common for people travelling in their 60s. The first one is a self-drive holiday. What I basically mean by that is I will book someone's flights, car hire and accommodation, and it'll be like a set itinerary based around their needs.
Yep.
Driving around countries such as United Kingdom, Ireland, New Zealand's really popular as well. And they're at that point there where also they're quite good navigators. So they're actually quite comfortable to find their own way around. And yeah, those sort of itineraries or countries that you can self-drive are the ones that are generally first world countries as well. They're not ones that are hard to get around. So as the countries I just mentioned. The other sort of style of holiday that a lot of 60s start thinking about and have started doing as well is organised tours. Yep. So meaning with a group of people, so whether it's a small group tour of 10 or whether it's a larger group tour of 40 or 50, just depends on which one they prefer, is really popular as well. And those organised tours are all over the world, essentially. So, and they're really good for people who don't want to navigate themselves around. So it's a complete opposite to the self-drive. So they're the ones that want everything done for them, want to be told what time to be ready down in a foyer to go to the next town. They just want basically a stressless holiday.
Yes.
And then the third one is cruising. Now, cruising is very, very popular nowadays. And it is ideal for the 60s because just like the organised group tours, you basically have everything done for you. But the difference between cruising and organised tours is that with cruises, you unpack and pack once.
Yes.
So it's actually more ideal for certain people in the fact that they don't want to be unpacking and packing every single time.
Yes.
So, yeah.
I can certainly resonate with cruising. So I've done not too many, but 3 cruises, and it's just so convenient to unpack once and to arrive in the port for. By the time that you wake up, you're there. You get off and you do your day trip, and then you come back on.
Yeah.
And then you're off again to the next port. So it's really good. Some stories. You have some unique stories of some travel that customers of yours have booked in their 60s. So one in particular on North Korea. I've never heard of anyone travelling to North Korea before. Tell us about that.
Okay, I'll be honest. In my 23 years in the industry, it's only happened once, which was with a very, very adventurous client of mine. I'll refer to him as Jeff. So Jeff has been absolutely almost everywhere in the world. Now, he came to me to book a holiday to North Korea maybe 5 or so years ago, and at that time it was very hostile over there. So I said to him, I will not book that holiday for you. When the time comes, we will go back to that one. So he trusts me enough and values me enough that he listened to my advice. But 2 years ago, there were actual tours going to North Korea. Yes. So I found one for him. And he went on over via China because you can't get there any other way. So you have to go via China, in and out. Yep. And he was the only person on a tour. He had 2 tour guides and 1 driver. So it was like a completely private tour. Yep. He went and saw the border, the DMZ, from both South Korea side and North Korea side.
Yeah, sure.
And he said to me it's one of the most interesting places he has ever been.
Yeah.
And to the point where the tour guide dropped him off at the hotel and basically told him not to leave the hotel until she came and got him the next day.
Yeah, sure.
So, yeah, look, like I said, it's very adventurous, but that's something that I can book for clients. This is very, very unique and different itineraries. He also just returned back from Iran, which I guess is somewhere else very, very, very different. Yeah. There are tours through there. And look, the good thing is, Jeff actually said out of all places he's been to, it's one of the most beautiful countries and most friendliest people actually that he's ever met, which was quite beautiful to actually hear because, you hear different stories. But to hear it, from the horse's mouth, it's somewhere I want to go to now. So now that he's tried it. Yeah.
So I imagine they must have been interesting welcome home phone calls that you made. So if you haven't listened to episode 18, Best Places to Travel in Your 50s, go back and have a listen to that. So Maria explains that one of the unique things that she does with her customers is gives them all a phone call when they return from their holiday to get their feedback, which is quite unique. I hadn't heard of anyone doing that. So I think it's a really good differentiator. So what were those? They must have been I guess you must have been anxious to see how Jeff went on both of those welcome home calls. So
yeah, absolutely. With those two examples as well, I actually did contact Jeff while he was away just to make sure he arrived and was happy, because they are very, very different, different types of countries to visit. So I wanted to make sure that his safety was priority as well.
Yes.
And when he did return, I also give the option to my clients of actually meeting face to face and having getting that feedback from them as well. So yeah, with Jeff, I did meet face to face, so he was happy to do that. So yeah, it was a very interesting conversation, to say the least. Yeah.
Fantastic. Well, thanks for coming in today, Maria. That was really good. So we'll include in the episode webpage and show notes, you'll have Maria's contact details there. So feel free to give her a call or an email for any of your travel needs coming up to meet with her. So you obviously have a no obligation policy. You meet with people, I imagine. Just explain that process. Yeah, if someone's looking to book a potential holiday with you, what is your process there?
Yeah, so what I do there is, now it comes down to whether it's actually an existing client or a potential new one. So with the existing client, we generally meet up. Sometimes they're happy just to have a chat over the phone about discussing their requirements if they're like an actual existing client. Otherwise, with the new ones especially, I will do my best to arrange an actual face-to-face appointment. I don't like to deal via internet and social media for new customers, because I think a lot of information can get lost in between all that sort of correspondence. So I do make a point of calling the potential new client and arranging a face-to-face appointment so that they can get to know me, I can get to know them, I can find out what sort of holiday they'd like. They get to know me as a travel consultant as well, because it needs to work both ways, I feel. So I find that first meeting is really, really important. So through that first meeting, we will discuss, what their needs are, what their wants are. And as you said, it's no obligation whatsoever. But you try and get some sort of commitment from them, I guess, as well, because I'm very much loyal with my clients, as I hope they are with myself.
Yes.
And I draw from the knowledge that I have and past experiences that I've had with other clients, and try and bring that into the conversation. And another thing I do mention in that first meeting as well is my 24-hour emergency assistance service, which I think is really handy and something that other travel consultants may not do. And that gives people the peace of mind as well.
Yeah, look, that certainly makes sense to me. We have a similar process. It sounds similar to ours. We have a face-to-face meeting with any new potential clients for the same reasons. Yeah, it's really, really hard to convey everything that you need to convey, and also to get to know that person if you're not doing it face-to-face. We feel that at the end of that first meeting, we've given our potential new client enough information where they could make a decision to either go with us or not. There's certainly no pressure on our behalf. It sounds like the same with you.
Absolutely.
We talk to that person or people and say, look, you guys go home and talk about it, and then and you come back to us should you want to proceed. We won't certainly. Whilst we could follow up with people, we like to have a no obligation policy. We realise it's quite daunting for people to feel that obligation sometimes when they're meeting with someone for the first time. So
absolutely,
that's really good. And you get to have a latte or a cappuccino by the sounds of things as well when you meet with you at a cafe somewhere around Maria. So that's really good to know. Like I said, we will include Maria's contact details, so feel free to get in touch with her should you for your next upcoming travel.
Thanks you, Michael.
For coming in.
Thanks for your time. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the Money Over 50 podcast with Lighthouse Financial Advisors. We look forward to catching up again soon.